Welcome to Breaking Initiative. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. Wherever you get to the podcast, we're probably there. My name is Brett.
And I'm Rob. This is a show where we break down our own tips and tricks to help you get the most out of your tabletop games. We share some of our favorite tools from around the community, discuss our past experiences, as well as things currently happening in the hobby. And boy, oh boy, do we have a doozy of an episode for you today.
Doozy.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Imagine with me. Let me take you on a little mental journey here, okay? All right.
Sorry, somebody's at my door.
Yeah, that was oddly appropriate.
Mental journey. Now it's on vibrate.
Right. Put that mental journey on vibrate and focus, Brett. Imagine with me that we're playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons. It's sad that we're imagining a world where we're playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons, not just imagining it. But we are we're sick and tired of making the same old characters, right? And wouldn't you know it, our DM is about to run in this hypothetical scenario, which is a completely different world than the one we're in right now.
Right.
About to run the new campaign setting from that's set in the Feywild. What kind of characters do you think you would like to run in this setting, Brett?
I'm thinking like a rabbit.
A rabbit. It's genius.
Yeah.
An anthropomorphic animal. Who would have thought of such an interesting race?
Wait, what if I'm kind of going also between possibly what if I just made like fairies cool? Like not keep it as more like Fern Gully? You know, there's like the one dude like, yeah, whatever, dude, I'm a fairy. So and
like the biker ones? I remember the biker ones.
Yeah, they're just cool. You know, I just go like the cool route rather than the, I'm a fairy. You know, so what? Yeah, I fly. I got nice wings, and so I'm gonna go in between. But I'm gonna go with the rabbit.
Yes.
I want to be a rabbit.
Okay.
Follow the white rabbit. That's me.
Wouldn't you know it? Just out of sheer coincidence, those happen to be the two exact races that are in this new book, Wild Beyond the Witchlight. It's almost as if we planned this and said it in the last video. In fact, we're wearing the same clothes as the last video. Either it's a complete coincidence, or maybe we just filmed this on the same day, or maybe we fell through a time loop scenario in the Feywild in which time functions differently than our own world.
Or coincidentally, we just never did laundry.
Yes, it's one of those four things for sure.
So many.
So the Harengon. I looked it up. I'm 90% sure that's how you pronounce it.
Got it. And the other one is pronounced Fairies?
That'd be right. Yes. It's a new idea that word is made up for D&D. It's not a real word, so according to it's actually Fairai.
Fairai, and then the group is Fairanians.
Yes. There we go.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's start with the Harengons.
Yeah.
We're going to confuse somebody probably.
This is not accurate.
That doesn't actually own the book yet and has no idea what we're going to talk about.
Harengons, you said, is the right way to say it?
Yeah. And that one I actually was serious about.
Right.
So...
And they're called fairies. They're called fairies. I was just joking. It was a joke. Anyways.
There's a couple of interesting ideas in I actually just looked at it today. For anybody who doesn't know, we're recording this the day that the book launched. Was it today or was it yesterday?
I think it was yesterday.
Well, we don't have to tell them that now that I think about it. I could have just said that.
No, it's fine.
So
we're
filming
it now.
Yesterday.
Yeah, this will come out in a week.
Yeah. So you've probably seen this a week late or two, but the Harengon it's an interesting race. I'm saying interesting. I think it's interesting for a lot of people, but it certainly does a lot of interesting things. And we've both had a chance to kind of briefly look over it.
Yeah.
The hard stats of it does some interesting things. But first of all, before we get into that stuff, let's talk about just the idea of what it is. What jumps out at you about it?
Of what it is?
No pun intended there.
Heyo. I mean, I don't know what jumps out at me about it. It definitely sparks more of a whimsical type of character for sure, because it's from the Feywild. You know,
right?
Doesn't really hit the rough and tough type, but doesn't mean it can't be. Yeah.
I feel like there's an uphill battle with a lot of these kinds of races that have been coming out in D&D. So, Rabbitfolk, they're just the Harengons. They're just Rabbitfolk. Then there's we have Elephant folk, and we've got
Tabaxi, which are cats.
Yeah, it's Tabaxi cat folk. They're just
right.
There's something about it that seems almost like necessary to fill a gap, but also a little uninspired. You know, just in the... I'm just pulling out my critique hat before we get too involved.
Sure.
In it. I'm just noticing this trend, and this isn't going to be the end. Next thing you know, they're going to make Bullywug a race, and we're going to have Frog folk. We have the Grungs already.
Wait, did you read through the book at all?
No.
Got it. Okay. They're frog people are in the book, so eventually that might happen.
I told you in the last video not to spoil... No, I'm just kidding.
Get there. Let me know in 3 years when you get there, right?
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. It's like it's playing Skyrim, and you create your character, and you go, do I want to be the cat guy? You know, so now again, D&D, you have the same kind of thing. Here's the thing: I feel like Dungeons and Dragons, though, is so much more welcoming to playing that outside person, that outside thing. Beyond a human elf or whatever. I think I've only created one human, and I've played it multiple times.
You played a lot of half elves.
I do a lot of half elf, which I think is very close to human still. I play elf, and one of my favorite characters I played, two of them. One of them was an orc, and the other one was a tabaxi, which I haven't gotten back to playing him in a while. So yeah, the off races, they're fun because I would almost challenge a new player maybe to take one of those. It kind of pushes you into like, oh man, I just kind of, if I don't just want to play a strategy game, I want to play into the role playing. You get to play a rabbit, and then you then can take the role playing into what a rabbit would do in some of these situations. When I played my Tabaxi cat sorcerer, I ordered milk at the tavern. I didn't get an alcoholic beverage, and it was great.
Maybe some carrot juice.
Some sort of carrot. Yeah, as a Harengon, you order like carrot juice, but it's like carrot juice on the rocks. And maybe
it's fermented.
Yeah, right. Something I don't know. Like I think it would help stretch a new player that's like, man, I just want to be like them. I want to be really out there in my role playing. I think being one of these monstrous type races, it kind of puts you out there because then you can play into that. Same thing with fairies. As a guy playing a fairy, like you can then like maybe have to always do this overly tough thing. Like, yeah, so what? I'm a fairy, and you know what I mean? And like, or you don't, or you play it feminine or not feminine. You know what I mean? Or you just completely play girl.
Like the ladybug from Bug's Life.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it just helps open you up. I think playing these extra races that are, would monstrous be the right way to say that, Rob?
They are. There's not really a word for it. If there were a word for it, there'd probably be racist in the world to even use that word.
Right.
You're so. How do I put this? Not human.
Yes.
You need to be in the not human category. I feel like, see, there's the humans.
This is literal racism.
Humans.
This is literally race. This is racist towards. It's talking about other races. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how I take it. I think it stretches you, and the traits normally balance pretty well, and sometimes they're like it's a little bit broken in some of these cases. Whenever you take on one of these monstrosity of a characters.
it challenges you to play your character in a new and unique way, which is always fun, and I like that, especially when it's very thoughtful the way that they've put it through.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely, I'd like to lean into the craziness of it to kind of put it front and center, like out. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, this is the phrase that I picked for my character.
Yeah.
So definitely playing it up as much as possible, leaning into it makes it a little. Making it more ridiculous makes it, but still keeping it grounded. I think is a nice balance to make it fun for everyone else.
Like Rabbit in Winnie the Pooh, like he's the most responsible one. You know,
Right.
You know what I mean? He has a farm. He has money coming in. He has things he's doing. Anyways, but also great for kids. Like whatever you're starting to play, I think this would be great.
Oh yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I think
for some reason I was imagining him like doing parties or something. He's great with kids. I didn't know where you were going with that.
I mean, playing a rabbit, but playing a Harengon,
right.
would
Introducing kids.
be like, hey, you're a rabbit, but you're like a cool rabbit, or not, whatever. Yeah. So what is it you think going into these?
We'll get into the stats of it right after this one last thought. I know one day I'm going to be rolling up a character, or God forbid, being a DM of a party that is just all animal people. That's what it's all. They're all going to be a different animal: a turtle, a frog, a rabbit, and it's just going to be so ridiculous.
Mission accomplished.
But I'm gonna stick with it, and I won't complain when that day happens. I think it's a little weird, but I'm down with it. This is D&D.
Well, hey, talk about racism. I think it's such a cool way to, whenever you play other weird races, you get to explore in the real world or certain worlds. It's always like, well, what races are looked down upon in this town? Okay. You know what I mean? And so I think it's really cool when you go to more of like a town that has more exotic races, like goblins and bugbears and maybe Rabbitfolk and all these kind of people. And then whenever like a human comes in, they're like,
right,
hey, what are you doing here? Compared to like everybody's all human, and then it's like, oh, you got an orc with you?
Right.
I don't trust him.
These guys chop down trees wherever they go. Get them out of here.
Right. So I love playing into that.
I'm an accountant. I don't chop down trees. Yes, you do. You're just like all the rest of them. I just balance books.
That's literally racist. That's literally racist. Too far. Okay, Rob, you want to go over the traits?
Harengon. God, that was a tangent. So one of the most really interesting things right up front about it that isn't done very often, I don't think it's done at all, and it really plays up the Feywild chaos of it, your size. Mm-hmm. You can literally pick medium or small size for the Harengon.
Yeah.
In the published one. I didn't read the Unearthed Arcana too much for these, so I don't know if that's what you're more familiar with. I'm only going to talk about the published ones when it comes to the stats. So, medium or small, pretty interesting. That means you can play like a little rabbit guy, normal human-sized rabbit guy. I think different people might have different expectations, for which one they would want. So it's cool that they left that open, and that since it's from the Feywild, it just makes sense, kind of.
Yeah. Tiny rogue, that's strategy. That's good strategy. If you play I would almost even say being a rogue and you take the medium size would be like, you could have done tiny. That might have been easier for you with the hiding and everything. As a DM would have known, oh, that's right, you're tiny. You would get more advantages.
Small. It's a key difference. And we'll go over that when we get to
small,
the,
right? Yes, tiny's the next one. Right. But even still, I believe small. You can be on the same. You could be on the same place as another player.
Depends. Like halflings have a special ability that allows them to like take cover or something with.
Sure.
With some, they kind of play with it, but really it takes up the full 5 foot space. And tiny's the one where it starts to be, you can start crowding the crap.
I'm just saying, like, if me as a DM and a player I knew took that, like, I'm like, you're gonna get more advantage. Like, there are gonna be some advantages. You're gonna be squishier, and most likely, unless you crank up your stats in some way, shape, or form,
Right. Being able to squeeze into tighter places and sneak into things. Yeah. So an interesting way to play up your race choice there. I always love modular
Right.
racial traits. It's like that.
Yeah.
Like you really customize it. Speed is only 30 feet, which is fine because something in later that is going to kind of aid that a little bit. Hair trigger, you can add your proficiency bonus to initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just a neat thing to have right off the bat. Proficiency bonus is always going to go up, so it's going to go up with your levels. It's just nice to have that, especially if you're playing an assassin, a bunny assassin. That'd be an interesting character. Leporine senses, I believe is how you pronounce it. Leporine senses. I looked up the pronunciation of that before too. I'm so self-conscious about that. Perception skill. So that's their skill thing that they get.
Right.
And then the two interesting ones are lucky footwork.
Right.
When you fail a dexterity saving throw, you can use a reaction to roll a d4 to add that to the save, potentially turning a failure into a success. This is interesting because it's not giving you an advantage or a disadvantage. It's almost like an inspiration bonus to your saving throw.
It's like guidance.
Yeah, like guidance. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Like guidance.
Yep.
It's just an interesting way to handle it because you can throw that on. Like that can turn the tide of your disadvantage that you have. But perhaps something was giving you disadvantage or advantage, and it adds on top of the advantage.
Yeah.
You can't use your reaction if you're prone or your speed is 0. That's fine. That makes sense.
Right.
But dexterity saving throw, I believe, at least in all the games I've ever played or DM'd, is the most common saving throw to do. Yeah.
And it goes along with the character because he's a nimble little dude,
Yeah.
Yeah. It almost gives the proper visualization of like, oh, a fireball's hit. How did that miss him?
Right.
Oh.
Right.
Like if eventually he gets evasion, like how did that actually miss? He just hopped really far and out of the way and timed it right and whatever.
Right. And lucky footwork playing off of the horrible idea that they've got lucky feet that you can...
Right.
I guess it also implies if you read too much into it, you could chop off their feet and just have this gigantic...
That's sick.
Rabbits.
Or do they have their
foot.
own? Do they have their ancestry's feet around their necks? Oh, that's some cool backstory right there. That's character. Heck yeah.
That's disgusting. This is a giant, humanoid.
Hey, I don't know their culture.
Rabbit
You don't know
penguin.
their culture. That's a thing. It's like the tiny heads or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, that was my great grandma. Yeah, she's still around. How dare you, Rob? You uncultured swine.
And then going right from that into rabbit hop, more nimble stuff. But this one can actually kind of add on a little bit to your movement as part of also. It's more useful to get out of getting attack of opportunities on you. Mm-hmm. Probably less useful for a rogue who has their cunning action to be able to do that.
Right.
But just useful in and of itself because it also gives you a little bit of movement to get out of the way, and then you can keep moving. Like, it doesn't use your movement speed. You just are that fast of a jumper. And I actually have, my daughter has a pet rabbit. It jumps like that.
Right.
It doesn't take up a second. It's done, and it's over there. They're pretty ridiculous. So it kind of makes sense, actually, that it doesn't use up any movement speed to be able to do that. And then you can just kind of get out of there. But that one you can only do a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain that after a long rest.
Right.
What do you think of these traits?
No, I think that's really good, and it kind of segues into my next thing I want to talk about is what classes do you think this is ideal for? And what classes would you almost be like, it's kind of double dipping, so why even?
It is a little bit. Thankfully, because it's the D4 for lucky footwork, anything like that's only going to help you with your evasion if you're a rogue, So rogue is still, I'd say, a really good one for this one. What was the ability score bonuses?
Well, it's the 2-1. It's the 2-1 or 3 in all of them. You could put 3.
Oh, they did do that.
Yeah, it's just full on. There's as far as what we're seeing on here, and guys, we could be wrong, but there is no option. It's just like you pick 2, pick whatever 2 you want, and then
look at that.
or pick whatever 2 traits, ability scores you want, and then have one of them have a +2, one of them's a +1, or you could do +1 on 3 different ones.
They got tired of trying to force people into certain builds. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I just thought they were still going to at least suggest them and keep the rule where you can trade them
Sure,
off.
and you know what? Here's the suggestion. Dexterity, probably, and then wisdom or intelligence. There you go. There's your suggestion.
Or +2 is strength, and you just like this really buff-ass bunny, you know?
Well, I'm just saying,
and
like...
he's like a blacksmith.
You can kind of imagine what the 2 things would have been. I mean, if they're nature-based, it's probably then more wisdom and then dexterity if you wanted to keep it roughly in theme. But for the most part, put it wherever you want. Because it would be really cool, and actually this is one of the things I was thinking about, going into one of these, what class you would pick. I'm going to go with a spellcaster, maybe, again, a wizard. Great for escaping. You're already going to be kind of squishy, you know. Great for possibly getting out whenever you run into another spellcaster that's doing, you know, big attacks on you guys. That has good escape possibilities and helps you not get hit. And also, you know, crank up your dexterity as well, you know, and then throw your 1 in intelligence and then build from there. That would be my suggestion. Maybe also, again, sorcerer, warlock. I didn't really look too much into the idea of the warlock, but again, you could do the same thing with sorcerer, or actually warlock, because they actually have medium armor, right? Their proficiency with medium armor.
Right.
So that, you know, get your AC up a little bit. You could be a little more tankier. And then, and I mean, you also got... My fighting styles probably would be barbarian. Barbarian, I really like. The thing is, I'm going to eventually get to this. Whenever there isn't a race, or whenever I don't have a class that doesn't take up too much of my bonus action, I would probably want to put with this. So... I will say that, and then I will talk more about it later. But barbarian, I guess also fighter too, you know.
All right. I mean, everything goes with fighter. You know me. I'm not going to go on and on about that for another video. But here's the interesting
Paladin. Paladin doesn't have a lot of bonus actions, I believe. Right? Is it bonus action to smite?
That's a good point.
Is smite's
right,
bonus?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay. Basically, thinking stats that don't use a lot of bonus actions or classes.
That's a great idea. That's something I never thought about. It's one of those things that I always felt burnt about if I picked the wrong one. I've got like 2 things that are trying, like a feat and like my abilities and my spells. They're all fighting for my bonus actions. I'm like, damn it.
Right.
I want to cast shield.
Right.
Or no, that's a reaction. Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
Reactions. Yeah, either way. Clockwork Soul, sorcerer. And it's modeled after the rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. You know, I'm late, and he's all time-based and stuff.
That is awesome. That is so cool. Make it just an NPC, if anything. We should do that. We should make the NPC and throw the PDF up here. Sorry, did I just create more work for us? Or you guys make it. Have fun. Go make it. What, Rob? What else? That beats.
That's it. I like to come up with interesting ideas for. I don't focus too much on the stats, especially like you said. Maybe there won't even be that much combat if your DM is that way when he runs, a Feywild campaign or this particular campaign setting. So you want to just play something that's interesting or has interesting abilities that are out of combat.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it too much. Think of something you're gonna want to play for 8 or plus levels.
Really quick, my no-goes. Surprisingly, even though it would work out very well with this, probably would be Monk because of the bonus actions. Monk is big on their bonus actions. Then it's like, I just got more things I can do with my bonus action. I already have a lot of things I can do with my bonus action.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is like maybe this just kind of character might or might not work. I'm not totally fond of it, mainly because I see this thing being like a monk and a rogue, And the thing is, both those classes really tackle into bonus actions. Like, you're using your bonus action to hide every time. Oh, you're using it for this? Okay, well, now you're not hidden, and then your next attack isn't going to have, sneak attack.
Well, unless they got cunning action.
Cunning, what do you mean? Cunning action?
So cunning action doesn't count as a bonus action. It's like an extra thing. You can only do hiding or...
but that's huge. That's like their thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, hide and then you attack. I mean, obviously, unless you have advantage some other way. But for you to create advantage yourself, that's going to take up your bonus action.
Yeah,
maybe that's good. Maybe just a few times you'll run in a campaign as a rogue that, oh man, I'm kind of stuck. Maybe you'll be fine because there's always a place for an advantage. You don't need to worry about hiding, or you weren't going to use this ability and you're just going to hide anyways. So it could be good. I feel like Monk, there's just too many things for bonus actions. To we're adding more stuff, it kind of is a little much.
We got to cover fairies.
Fairies. Oh gosh, we have 13 seconds. Fairies. They're great. All right, see you guys.
Google it.
Google it.
No.
Bye. No.
That's not why I watch these videos.
Yeah, that's.
He always tells me to Google it. So fairy, you've actually kind of sprinkled a little bit of your feelings about fairy throughout this whole video. Mm-hmm. And, like, sprinkled it like fairy dust, if you will.
Heyo.
What are your thoughts about the fairy as a player race?
I mean, I would almost want to try it in a one shot first. Before I dove into it, and I'm going to dedicate like a whole campaign to it, I would probably want to try it in a one shot, and I see a lot of potential where I might love it. I think it's great. The fairy can have large and reduce once a day, and a few other things.
At third level, fifth level, I think.
At fifth level, they just get it, and they have a few other fairy fire and large reduce. Druidcraft.
They start off with Druidcraft at first level and then get Fairy Fire at third level. Yeah, that's like Drow, how they kind of get newer spells as they level up to stay balanced. Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool because you don't have to be like this constant small or tiny thing. Are you tiny or small in this?
So that is one of the things I want to talk about the most. This goes into like the intrinsics of Wizards of the Coast's like decision making for making player races. That is a contentious point for me and thorn in my side that I really got to talk about. They are terrified of making a player race that is not small or medium. And I have a lot of theories as to why that is. And one of my instincts is when I see the fairy races, well, in my campaign, I'm just going to make them tiny. Right? You can just say that. They're small. They're small sized. Mm-hmm. In the actual published book itself, they're different than pixies and sprites, which are the tiny ones that you're thinking of when you think of a tiny little thing.
Right.
A fairy in D&D is a different thing that's related to them. That's actually the size of a halfling. So just a little guy. The reasoning for this, they did the same thing with Minotaur and Centaur on the opposite end of the spectrum. They made them still medium size, even though the monster stat block for both of those races is large.
Right. Yes.
Yes. Here's why. Here's why they did it. It's because of their published adventures. They want each of these races that they have to be able to work in their published adventures no matter what without having to change anything, that put any extra work on the DM to be able to adjust, to make whatever they need to get it to work. I'm pretty sure Furbolg should probably be large as well, but I think they actually just completely changed that whole thing when they updated it.
They have the strength of a large character.
Exactly, and they always do that. They always say that when they do the large
same thing with
orcs. And now they're starting to do it with the smaller ones. I want to play a tiny guy. It'd be neat, but what'll happen? A hallway. That's the biggest one for a large size creature.
Sure.
You technically have to squeeze to get through a hallway as a centaur that were large or a minotaur. You can't just flip a switch and say that without also acknowledging the fact they have to do that. You can just give them a player race ability that says they don't have to squeeze because they got a smaller build or something. Call it small build. And you just ignore it. Whatever.
Right.
It gives you a little work where you have to work on it. And then everybody's miniatures, you're going through a 5-foot wide hallway. It's like, it's just kind of...
Can't really dungeon delve if you're this gigantic horse thing. But that's what I want to play.
That's why they do it. It just makes it easier to say, no, when they're a player, they're medium for no explicable reason. Fairy, because I can think of one thing right off the bat. There's a spot in the first one, the starter kit, Lost Mines of Phandelver, the first dungeon you go into, right as you turn right, there's a little hole in the wall that leads to the main bad guy, the last boss that you'd fight to save, the guy you got to save. I don't want to spoil too much.
Sure.
God, I've unexpectedly spoiled a different thing. If you were tiny sized, you could then squeeze through that space very easily and just get right to the end.
Right.
You can get to places, especially being able to fly, that the rest of the party wouldn't. You could probably break dungeons and solve stuff and just...
Yeah.
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 No. That makes total sense. Yeah, and it's like, well, you could do that, but then you only hit your bow and arrows super tiny. It's a 1. You only can hit for 1.
And weapons, like, now they're small size, they can use halfling weapons, but then what are we using? Like freaking little pixie bows? Like, should that do less damage?
Right. They all have to have poison
on them. Am I allowed to use a halberd?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So they just hand wave it and say, "No, we're just not going to do that.
They're just big.
Fairy. They're just a bigger version of a pixie fairy sprite thing."
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's fine. That was too much time I put in there.
It's
I'm sorry.
fine. Good rant.
Actual stats.
Great rant, you jerk.
If you are going to do that and make them tiny, just be prepared for the rest of it. If they say that they're trapped in a cage in a part of the campaign that you're trying to do, be sure the bars are either small enough or they're in a separate bird cage where they're trapped. Otherwise, they're just going to fly out and steal the key.
The fairy traits are pretty simple. I mean, they just have the magic we already talked about, and then flight. As much as their fly speed, they have a walking speed, like an Aarakocra.
In the published art, they have one of the fairies in it's either chainmail or it's scale mail.
Yes.
Flying.
Let's see. Can you? Well, you're not going to be able to. You can't. Okay. So.
It shows up pretty good. But it's.
Yeah, this guy down here.
But it clearly says there, you can't use this flying speed if you're wearing medium or heavy armor.
Right.
I don't know why they do that. Why do they do that? Why do they say you can't fly with the heavy armor? Like, what are they really? They don't want you to be in heavy armor and flying. Why not?
It doesn't mean you have advantage on stealth. You're still you're Santa Claus in the air, basically.
I get why it's more difficult, but they write it in the rules. You can't even wear hide armor, and fly. I wonder why they do that.
Maybe they think it's broken. Maybe they just think it's broken.
Never change. This is some of the best advice I want to give new DMs. I'm going to hide in here like a little nugget at the end. Never change a rule in Dungeons & Dragons unless you know why the rule was there in the first place. Don't just change it because you don't like it, because it's probably some peg that they stuck in the hull of their ship to prevent a leak. And if you pull it out, your ship is going to sink and someone's going to exploit the hell out of something you didn't even realize because you didn't look into it. So
I would say, depending on the party, that is the great general knowledge to just do that. If you cannot find out what that thing is, tell your party, and that's what we have in our party, where it's like, listen, we're going to go with this for now, because maybe it's not so much of a direct rule as written down, but just as a general of this player's trying to exploit this. It's not breaking the game right now, but there should just be a general rule of, okay, I'm going to let that go for now. Don't think that's in stone, until if it starts to get taken advantage of and it's it's breaking the world and it's kind of beyond adjusting and it's you just wound up being far better than anybody else at the table, and it's just unfair and it's not fun anymore, I'm gonna stifle that rule. That had to happen with us, with our gunslinger and things like that. As things were happening, had to happen. It's fine. It was great. He was doing too good.
That's pretty amazing. I actually, as my fighter, I use my my commands, my commander die or whatever to actually just command him to attack for me sometimes, because it's just way more effective.
Right.
It's like, you shoot him.
Yes.
Wow, that was way better than what I was gonna do.
Pretty much. Ability score is the same thing. 2 wherever you want, 1 wherever you want, or 3 in 3 different scores. Again, probably if you wanted to go the base of like, well, I want them to just tell me, it's probably 2 in dexterity, 1 in wisdom, because it's druid-like spells that you're doing, most likely. So
yeah, similar to a wood elf.
Yeah, similar to a wood elf. But again, you can put it wherever you want, and I don't know if that even says what is your spell. Trait is where your spell is going to adjust. I don't know. I didn't look into the fairy that much. It's probably wisdom.
Druid would be a good spell for this, because not only you get to add cantrips, but it actually has written in here about the fairy magic. You can also cast either of those spells using any spell slots you have of the appropriate level. So that you don't even have to. It doesn't even have to be on your spell list.
Right.
Oh, that's fantastic. You can be a wizard and still cast those. They're just on your spell list. You can cast it with your spell slots.
Yep.
They got to do that with the other ones. That's amazing. Maybe they did, and I didn't read it close enough.
I think some of them
didn't.
Some of them. There's tieflings and things like that you get free spells, and all kinds of tieflings and all kinds of stuff.
Well, I mean, you get the spells, but like being able to cast it with your spell slots, even if it's not on your spell list, that's just interesting. I wonder if maybe I overlooked that.
Mm-hmm.
But what class would you pick?
Again, don't know. I don't know what I would commit to.
Don't say barbarian again.
No.
Don't say barbarian.
I don't know what to commit to. I don't know what I would commit to with this thing. Maybe I would do a spellcaster just because I can fly and get away and still cast spells. I don't know. I mean, I guess still this could be cool as a monk. This would be kind of cool as a monk. I could see this being pretty cool as a monk, I would... Rogue is always strong. You know what I mean? Of course, because I always think rogues are broken in the first place.
We gotta stop that trend. There's so many races. I mean, so many classes. What's another one that's broken as hell?
Gunfighter, gunslinger, fighter.
That was not officially published. That's just in D&D Beyond.
Okay. Yeah, again, your spellcasters. I mean, I would go, sorcerer, wizard, whatever. Just because you have the flight to stay away and you have extra spells to cast.
That's a really good point. Ranger would be a great one to do it with.
That's true. Ranger.
They even got spell slots. You can cast some of these, like enlarge, reduce, and stuff, like more often and things like that once you get up there.
And also warlock, because you only have so many spell slots for warlock.
Ranged attack is a great way to go for. But you got to remember the medium and heavy armor limitation with the flight. So if you want to do that, that really narrows it down to some sort of like pure spellcaster to really take advantage.
Right, or monk.
Or monk.
I mean, you could go barbarian.
And then you use the rule in Tasha's to make your monk weapon a ranged weapon. Maybe even a gun, if your DM is very nice or likes weird stuff.
Would you add the rule of, like, if you had a gun that had a bunch of kickback and you're flying and you're small, like, okay, whenever you shoot your gun, you move back 5 feet in the air? I just feel like that would happen.
I'd want him to do a little flip and catch himself, but yeah, he'd probably still stay in the same space.
All right.
He's so tiny. How far can he move?
Right. Yeah, right.
I mean, small, not tiny.
That's true. All right, Rob. Woo. We went long.
We went long.
Yay. Are we good?
Yay.
I think eventually we'll do more with this. And I think if you guys like this, we will talk more about different content that is coming out and what we think. So yeah, I'm Brett. That is Rob. I think we'll see you on the next one. All right.
See you when we see you.